The Roman Empire's takeover of the Jewish people was a story of gradual encroachment, ruthless ambition, and unyielding force. What began as a political maneuver eventually turned into a campaign of dominance that would forever change the course of Jewish history, reshaping the cultural and spiritual landscape of the ancient world. The process spanned more than a century, unfolding in a series of decisive events that stripped Judea of its autonomy and thrust it under the iron grip of Roman authority. It began in 63 BC, a time of internal strife and chaos within the Jewish kingdom. The Hasmonean kingdom, once a symbol of Jewish independence, had fallen into disarray as rival factions vied for control. Caught in the web of this internal conflict were Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus II, two brothers locked in a bitter struggle for the throne. Sensing an opportunity to expand his influence, the Roman general Pompey the Great intervened, presenting himself as an arbiter in their civil war. In truth, Pompey saw Judea as another jewel to be added to the ever-expanding Roman crown. Pompey sided with the weaker Hyrcanus II, not out of loyalty or justice, but because he knew a pliable ruler would make for an easier conquest. With Roman legions at his back, Pompey marched on Jerusalem, besieging the sacred city for 3 long months. When the city finally fell, Pompey committed an act that sent shockwaves throughout the Jewish world. He entered the Holy of Holies, the most sacred chamber of the Jewish temple, a space reserved only for the high priest. It was an act of sacrilege, a profound violation, and a clear message that Judea's autonomy was now subject to Rome's ambitions. Though Judea remained nominally independent, it had in reality become a client state of Rome, a kingdom in name only, its sovereignty slipping through its fingers like sand. Over the following decades, Rome's grip on Judea tightened, but it was the rise of Herod the Great that marked a new chapter in this saga of domination. In 37 BC, with the backing of the Roman Senate, Herod was appointed king of Judea. Although a convert to Judaism, Herod was seen by many as a puppet of Rome, a man whose loyalty lay not with his people but with his imperial benefactors. Herod ruled with an iron fist, quelling any resistance with brutal efficiency. His reign was characterized by grandiose building projects, including the magnificent expansion of the Second Temple, yet beneath the splendor lay a regime of fear and oppression. Upon his death in 4 BC, Judea was fractured, divided among his sons, each of whom ruled as client kings under Rome's watchful eye. The illusion of independence faded further as Rome's influence over Judea grew ever more absolute. The turning point came in 6 AD, when Rome took the final step in erasing any semblance of Jewish self-governance. After the removal of Herod's incompetent son Archelaus, Rome decided to impose direct rule, transforming Judea into a Roman province. Henceforth, Roman governors, known as prefects or procurators, administered the land. Among them was Pontius Pilate, a man whose name would become forever entwined with the fate of Jesus of Nazareth. This shift to direct Roman rule was a blow to Jewish pride and autonomy, and resentment simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to boil over. That moment arrived in 66 AD, when years of mounting tensions, oppressive taxation, and the callousness of Roman officials ignited the flames of rebellion. The First Jewish-Roman War, also known as the Great Jewish Revolt, erupted, and for a brief moment it seemed as though the Jewish people might reclaim their freedom. But Rome, under the command of General Vespasian and his son Titus, responded with merciless force. The siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD marked the culmination of this brutal campaign. After months of starvation, suffering, and desperate fighting, the city fell. The Second Temple, the heart of Jewish worship and identity, was set ablaze and reduced to rubble. Thousands were slaughtered, and many more were taken as slaves as the Jewish nation was crushed under the weight of Roman might. The destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD was one of the most devastating and defining moments in Jewish history. This sacred structure, which had stood as the heart of Jewish worship for centuries, was set ablaze during the Roman siege of Jerusalem. The siege itself was brutal, lasting for months and marked by famine, internal strife among the Jews, and relentless assaults by Roman forces. As tensions escalated, the Roman general Titus, who led the campaign, ordered a final, all-out assault on the city. The temple, a symbol of Jewish faith and identity, became the focal point of this conflict. Despite fierce resistance from the Jewish defenders, the Romans breached the city's defenses and made their way toward the Temple Mount. According to the historian Flavius Josephus, a Jewish general who later defected to the Romans, the destruction of the temple may not have been a premeditated act. As the fighting raged on, a Roman soldier, reportedly acting against Titus's orders, threw a flaming torch into one of the temple's chambers. The fire spread quickly, engulfing the structure in flames. Once the fire took hold, the Romans intensified the destruction, tearing down walls, slaughtering those who sought refuge within, and ensuring that nothing remained but smoldering ruins. The golden ornaments and sacred items were plundered, and the temple, once the dwelling place of God's presence on earth, was reduced to ashes. Yes, Jesus did visit this very temple multiple times during his ministry, as recorded in the New Testament. It was the second temple that Jesus knew, the one magnificently expanded and renovated by Herod the Great. It was here that he taught, debated with the religious leaders, and performed miracles. One of the most famous accounts is when, as a boy of 12, Jesus was found in the temple by his parents, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. He also cleansed the temple of the money changers, overturning their tables and declaring, "It is written, 'My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves.'" Jesus' connection to the second temple was profound, and he even prophesied its destruction. In Matthew 24 verses 1-2, as he left the temple, he told his disciples, "See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." This prophecy came to pass with chilling accuracy when the Romans demolished the temple in 70 AD, fulfilling the words of Christ about the impending judgment and the end of an era. The destruction of the Second Temple marked not only the end of a physical structure, but also a significant turning point in Jewish history. It signaled the collapse of Jewish political independence and altered the way Judaism was practiced, as temple-based worship could no longer continue. For early Christians, the event further affirmed the teachings of Jesus, reinforcing the idea that God's presence was not confined to a building, but was now accessible through Christ himself. In 132 AD, the embers of resistance flared once more in what would become the final act of defiance, the Bar Kokhba revolt. Led by Simon Bar Kokhba, a man hailed as a potential messiah, the Jews launched a fierce and determined uprising against their Roman oppressors. For a time, they succeeded, reclaiming parts of their homeland. But Rome, unwilling to tolerate insurrection on its frontier, dispatched overwhelming military force to quash the rebellion. The aftermath was catastrophic. Hundreds of thousands were killed, and those who survived were either sold into slavery or exiled from their homeland. Determined to erase any trace of Jewish identity, the Romans renamed Judea as Syria Palestina, a calculated effort to sever the historical bond between the Jewish people and their land. Jerusalem, once the epicenter of Jewish faith, was transformed into a Roman city called Aelia Capitolina, and Jews were forbidden to enter it, except on the day of Tisha B'Av, when they mourned the destruction of their temple. The Roman Empire's conquest of Judea was not merely a political or military achievement, it was a profound and deliberate act of cultural and spiritual subjugation. It began with political intrigue, moved through ruthless conquest, and culminated in the relentless suppression of a proud and ancient people. Over the course of more than a century, Rome reduced the Jewish nation to a shadow of its former self, reshaping its destiny and scattering its people across the far reaches of the empire. Yet, despite the devastation and despair, the legacy of Judea's struggle against Rome endured, shaping not only the Jewish identity, but also the very fabric of Christian thought and theology that emerged in the centuries that followed. The story of Rome's conquest of Judea is a testament to the resilience of faith, the dangers of unchecked power, and the enduring quest for freedom that echoes through the annals of history.